Episode 59, Princess Diana, Accident, or Something More Sinister. Welcome back to the Conspiracy Theory Analyst. I'm Robin. August 31st, 1997. In the Pont l'Alma tunnel in Paris, a car carrying Princess Diana, her companion Dodi Fayed, and their driver Henri Paul crashed at high speed. Dodi and Henri Paul died at the scene. Diana was taken to hospital and died in the early morning hours. Her bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, survived. The world stopped. Diana was perhaps the most famous woman on earth, beloved, photographed obsessively, and in the months before her death, at the center of a new relationship that was itself generating enormous press coverage and royal family tension. Her death, in a Parisian tunnel at the wheel of a drunk driver being chased by paparazzi, felt to many people impossible to accept as simple tragedy. What followed was one of the most extensively investigated conspiracy theories in history. Tonight we look at what was claimed, what was found, and what remains, even now, an open question for some. Detailed explanation, the official account, is this. Henri Paul, head of security at the Ritz Hotel in Paris, was driving Diana and Dodi Fayed from the hotel on the night of August 30th. He was 3 times over the French drink-drive limit and had traces of prescription drugs in his system. Being pursued by paparazzi on motorcycles, he drove at high speed through the Pont l'Alma underpass and lost control of the vehicle, striking the tunnel's 13th pillar at approximately 65 miles per hour. Diana, who was not wearing a seatbelt, sustained fatal injuries. A French judicial investigation took years and concluded the crash was caused by Henri Paul's impairment and reckless driving. The pursuing photographers were charged with manslaughter and failure to assist injured persons, though they were ultimately acquitted. In the United Kingdom, Operation Paget, a metropolitan police investigation led by former Commissioner Lord Stevens, produced an 871-page report in 2006 dismissing claims of murder conspiracy. A coroner's inquest jury returned a verdict in 2008 of unlawful killing due to reckless driving and the grossly negligent pursuit by the paparazzi. That is the official finding. The conspiracy theory that sits beside it is the most prominent in British and European popular culture. Core element of the conspiracy, the central allegation, pursued most publicly by Mohammed Al-Fayed, the father of Dodi, is that Diana and Dodi were murdered on the orders of the British royal family, executed by MI6, because their relationship was unacceptable to the establishment. Al-Fayed claimed Diana was pregnant with Dodi's child, that the couple were about to announce their engagement, and that the royal family, specifically Prince Philip, could not accept the prospect of an Egyptian Muslim becoming the stepfather of the future King of England. The first element supporting this theory is the claim that Henri Paul was an MI6 informant. Former MI6 officer Richard Tomlinson made a sworn statement claiming he had seen Paul's file and could confirm he was working for the security services. Suspicious funds in Paul's bank accounts, nearly $250,000, were cited as evidence of payments from an intelligence source. The second element is the alleged flash of light in the tunnel. Multiple witnesses reported seeing a bright flash inside the Pont l'Alma underpass immediately before the crash. Conspiracy believers argue this was a blinding device, a technique used by intelligence services to disorient drivers, deployed deliberately to cause the accident. The third element is the driver of a pursuing white Fiat Uno that made contact with the Mercedes before the crash. That car was never conclusively identified, and its driver was never found. For conspiracy believers, the unidentified vehicle was the instrument of the operation. The fourth element is what happened after the crash. The decision to embalm Diana's body in France before returning her to the UK is claimed to have been taken at a diplomatic level, and would have made confirming or denying pregnancy far more difficult. The speed of the embalming is cited as evidence of a cover-up. Evidence for and against the evidence against the conspiracy is extensive. The 871-page Operation Paget report investigated every allegation systematically and dismissed all of them. The coroner's inquest similarly found no evidence of murder conspiracy. Post-mortem examinations found no evidence of pregnancy. Blood samples found at the scene showed no elevated pregnancy hormones. Diana's close friend Rosa Monckton confirmed she was not pregnant and knew Diana was not. Operation Paget confirmed that Henri Paul had been drinking that night. He was served whiskey at the Ritz, and that his blood alcohol level was 3 times the French legal limit. Forensic expert Angela Gallup found no grounds to support a murder claim. Richard Tomlinson, the former MI6 officer, later acknowledged he could not be certain Paul was a paid agent. The coroner categorically dismissed claims of royal or MI6 involvement in his summation. The white Fiat Uno, while never identified, has a mundane explanation. Paris at night, a minor collision. A driver who did not realize the significance of the contact and drove away. Frightening, but consistent with an accident scenario. The evidence that gives pause is largely circumstantial. The unexplained funds in Paul's account. The persistent claims of a former intelligence officer. The flash of light reported by witnesses. The speed with which certain post-death procedures were carried out. None of these constitute proof of murder, but neither do they have fully satisfying explanations. Arguments in favor believers argue that the sheer scale of what would have been lost. Diana was becoming an increasingly independent, powerful voice on issues the establishment found uncomfortable, from landmines to her very public criticism of the royal family, gave powerful people genuine motive. They argue that the investigation was conducted by the same institutions being accused, which represents an inherent conflict of interest. And they point to the history of intelligence services conducting operations that were only acknowledged decades later. Mohammed Al-Fayed maintained his belief until his own death in 2023. His son's death, he always said, was simply collateral damage in a plot aimed at Diana. Arguments against skeptics point out that the conspiracy theory, as fully articulated by Al-Fayed, required the coordinated silence of an extraordinary number of people, French police, British intelligence, medical examiners, hospital staff, diplomatic officials, across nearly 3 decades, with no credible insider ever breaking ranks. The investigation was among the most thorough ever conducted into a celebrity death, and it found nothing. They also note that Henri Paul's impairment, the lack of seatbelts, the speed, and the paparazzi pursuit constitute a perfectly sufficient cause of death without requiring any additional explanation. Occam's razor applies. The simplest explanation consistent with the evidence is usually correct. Public opinion and broader impact. Diana's death remains one of the most discussed events in modern British history. Polls have consistently shown that a significant portion of the British public, and an even higher proportion internationally, do not fully accept the accident verdict. Her life, her treatment by the royal family, and her death together form a narrative so dramatic that the idea of a tragic accident feels insufficient. Her legacy has shaped the royal family profoundly. The years following her death produced a fundamental shift in how the monarchy engaged with the public. The conversations she began about landmines, mental health, and institutional cruelty within the establishment never fully closed. Conclusion: was Princess Diana's death an accident or something more sinister? The official investigations, after years of the most thorough inquiry applied to this case, found no evidence of murder. The verdict of unlawful killing stands, caused by Henri Paul's impairment and the reckless pursuit of the paparazzi. For believers, the investigation was conducted by the very institutions that had motive to protect the conspiracy. The unanswered questions, the funds, the flash, the white car are enough. For skeptics, a drunk driver at speed, a tragedy in a tunnel, and the world's most famous woman without a seatbelt is explanation enough, however impossible it feels. What is certain is this: Diana died at 36 years old. The world grieved as it rarely had before, and the questions that followed her death have never fully been quieted. This is the Conspiracy Theory Analyst. I'm Robin. If tonight's episode made you think, please rate and follow on Spotify. Tomorrow on the Conspiracy Theory Analyst, MK Ultra, the CIA's secret mind control experiments. That's next.